February 4th, 1942. North Atlantic, 520 miles west of Ireland. Kapitänleutnant Reinhard Suhren stood in the conning tower of U-564, scanning the horizon through his Zeiss binoculars. The gray Atlantic stretched endlessly in every direction. No ships, no aircraft, no threats. His submarine was invisible, his position known only to Berlin and the other U-boats in his wolfpack. Message from BDU, his radio operator called up from below, using the abbreviation for Befehlshaber der Unterseeboot, U-boat command. Convoy HX-175, located at grid reference AL6832, proceed at maximum speed. 17 boats converging. Suhren smiled. This was the Enigma machine's promise. Perfect coordination through unbreakable encryption. Admiral Donitz could orchestrate wolfpack attacks across thousands of miles of ocean because every U-boat commander could receive detailed orders without fear of interception. The Allies might capture the messages, but they were gibberish without the encoding machine. The German Navy had mathematical certainty of this. What Kapitänleutnant Suhren didn't know, what no German officer knew, was that 900 miles away, in a Victorian mansion in Bletchley Park, England, a brilliant mathematician named Alan Turing had already read that message. Not just read it, but decrypted it 3 hours before U-564 received it. British naval intelligence knew exactly where Convoy HX-175 was. They knew 17 U-boats were converging. They knew the Wolfpack's attack plan, the individual boat positions, and the commander's intentions. They were already routing the convoy away from the trap. And Kapitänleutnant Suhren, like every German commander for the next 3 years, would never understand why his perfectly planned ambush found nothing but empty ocean. This is the story of the greatest intelligence coup in military history. How British codebreakers cracked Germany's unbreakable Enigma cipher and read Hitler's most secret communications for years without Germany ever suspecting. How mathematical genius defeated mechanical perfection, and how thousands of German soldiers, sailors, and airmen died following orders that the Allies had already read and countered. The Enigma machine looked like a typewriter in a wooden box, but it was the most sophisticated encryption device ever created. Developed in the 1920s for commercial use, it was adopted by the German military in the 1930s and progressively upgraded until it became, in the assessment of Germany's top cryptographers, mathematically unbreakable. The machine's genius lay in its complexity. When an operator pressed a key, electrical current passed through 3 or more rotors, each containing 26 different wirings. Then, through a reflector that sent it back through the rotors by a different path, finally illuminating a letter on the lampboard. Each key press caused the rotors to step forward, changing the encoding for the next letter. The number of possible rotor positions was astronomical, with 3 rotors chosen from a set of 5, each with 26 positions, plus a plug board that could swap 10 pairs of letters. The total number of possible settings exceeded 150 trillion. To decrypt a message without knowing the settings would require testing every combination, a task that would take longer than the age of the universe. German cryptographers had done the mathematics. Breaking Enigma through brute force was impossible. The machine was perfect. Oberst Fritz Nebel, chief of Wehrmacht Signals Intelligence, stated in a 1940 report, "The Enigma encoding system provides absolute security. Even if the enemy captures a machine and messages, decryption without daily key settings is mathematically impossible. Our communications are invulnerable." This confidence permeated every level of German military planning. Commanders sent detailed operational orders via Enigma without hesitation. U-boat positions were radioed constantly for wolfpack coordination. Luftwaffe raid plans were transmitted hours in advance. The Africa Corps sent supply convoy routes and timing without concern. Everything was protected by mathematics. But the Germans had made several critical mistakes, small human errors that mathematical genius could exploit. The Polish Cipher Bureau had begun attacking Enigma in the 1930s. Brilliant Polish mathematicians, including Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rzycki, and Henryk Zagalski, made the first breakthrough, developing mechanical devices called bomby that could test rotor positions rapidly. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, the Poles passed everything they knew to British and French intelligence. The British established the Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park, a Victorian mansion in Buckinghamshire, 50 miles north of London. They recruited the brightest mathematical minds in Britain: university professors, chess champions, crossword puzzle experts, anyone who could think in patterns and probabilities. Alan Turing, a 27-year-old mathematician from Cambridge, arrived at Bletchley Park in September 1939. He was socially awkward, brilliant beyond measure, and about to change the course of history. Turing understood that you couldn't decrypt Enigma by testing every possible setting, but you didn't need to. The Germans, through operational necessity and human nature, had created patterns that could be exploited. First, Enigma had a fundamental flaw. A letter could never encode as itself. If you pressed A, the lamp that lit up would never be A. This seemed like a security feature, but was actually a weakness that eliminated vast numbers of possible solutions. Second, German operators followed predictable patterns. Weather reports, sent at the same time each day, often began with weather in German. Military communications frequently started with an, to, followed by a unit designation. These cribs, known or suspected plaintext, gave codebreakers starting points. Third, the Germans reused some message elements. Each message began with a 3-letter indicator that told the receiving operator the rotor starting positions. These indicators followed patterns that could be exploited. Turing designed an electromechanical device called the bomb, an evolution of the Polish bomby, but far more sophisticated. The bomb could test thousands of rotor positions per hour, using cribs and the known Enigma constraints to eliminate impossible settings. When it found a configuration that matched the crib, it would stop, allowing cryptanalysts to test whether that setting decrypted the entire message. The first bomb, named Victory, became operational in March 1940. It was crude, slow, and unreliable, but it worked. On January 22, 1940, Bletchley Park decrypted its first Enigma message from the German army. The message was routine, a request for spare parts, but it proved the system could be broken. By May 1940, Bletchley was reading some German Air Force traffic, not consistently and not quickly enough to be operationally useful. But the fortress was cracking. Then came the intelligence breakthrough that would turn the Battle of the Atlantic. On May 9, 1941, the German submarine U-110 was forced to surface after depth charge attacks by HMS Bulldog and HMS Broadway. The U-boat's captain attempted to scuttle the vessel, but British sailors boarded before it sank and captured an intact Enigma machine, plus codebooks and current rotor settings. This was intelligence gold. Having an actual machine allowed Bletchley cryptanalysts to understand exactly how the current military version worked. The codebooks provided months of daily settings. Most valuable were the operational procedures, the subtle ways that German operators actually use the machines. The capture was classified at the highest possible level. The U-110's crew were separated and held incommunicado to prevent word reaching Germany. The submarine's sinking was reported, but not the boarding. Germany never knew the Enigma machine had been captured. Within weeks, Bletchley Park was reading German naval Enigma regularly. The intelligence, codenamed Ultra, began flowing to British commanders. The impact on the Battle of the Atlantic was immediate and dramatic. German U-boat wolfpacks operated on the principle of coordinated attacks. Individual submarines would patrol lines. When one spotted a convoy, it would radio position to U-boat command in France. Admiral Dönitz would then vector every boat within range to the target, creating a wolfpack that could overwhelm convoy escorts. This required constant radio communication, all encrypted via Enigma. Starting in mid-1941, British naval intelligence began reading these transmissions. They knew when U-boats reported convoy sightings. They knew when Dönitz ordered boats to specific positions. They knew the planned attack times and approaches. Convoy routing officers could steer merchant ships away from wolfpack patrol lines. When attacks were unavoidable, escorts knew exactly how many U-boats to expect and from which directions. The British were fighting with perfect intelligence, while the Germans fought blind. Admiral Karl Dönitz began noticing disturbing patterns in late 1941. Convoys were evading his carefully positioned wolfpacks with suspicious frequency. Boats would patrol for days without sighting prey, while British convoys passed just beyond their search areas. Attacks that should have succeeded were met with prepared escorts in unexpected strength. The enemy's evasive routing is inexplicable, Dönitz wrote in his war diary in November 1941. We deploy patrol lines across predicted convoy routes. The convoys alter course before reaching our positions. Either they possess exceptional intelligence about our dispositions, or they have extraordinary good fortune. Dönitz ordered investigations into possible intelligence leaks. German counterintelligence examined every possibility. Spies in U-boat bases, compromised radio operators, observation of submarine departures. They found nothing because they were looking in the wrong places. The one possibility they never seriously considered was that Enigma itself had been broken. The mathematics said it was impossible. Therefore, it was impossible. B-Dienst, the German Naval Intelligence Service, monitoring Allied communications, reported that British naval codes appeared secure but not unbreakable, suggesting both sides had roughly equivalent cryptographic capabilities. This reinforced German confidence in Enigma's security. In March 1943, a German security review specifically examined whether Enigma could have been compromised. The conclusion was emphatic. Decryption of Enigma-encoded messages without key settings is mathematically excluded. Even if the enemy possesses machines, which we know they have captured from sunk vessels, they cannot decrypt without daily settings, which change at midnight. Our encryption remains secure. This assessment contained a fatal irony. The Germans had partially captured British naval codes and could read some Allied traffic. They assumed the British had similar partial success with German codes. They never imagined the British were reading everything. By 1943, Bletchley Park had become an industrial intelligence operation. Over 10,000 people worked there, operating 211 bombs that ran 24 hours a day. The facility was processing over 84,000 Enigma messages per month. Not just naval traffic, but Army, Air Force, and SS communications. The intelligence product was extraordinary. British commanders knew German battle plans before the German soldiers who would execute them. They knew supply convoy routes, ammunition states, unit strengths, and officer personalities. They knew which units were experienced and which were replacements. They knew morale problems and equipment shortages. This created an unprecedented challenge: how to use ultra-intelligence without revealing its existence. If the British suddenly won every battle by exploiting knowledge they couldn't possibly have, the Germans would realize their codes were broken. They would change encryption systems, and the intelligence source would dry up. Ultra had to remain secret, even at the cost of accepting some defeats. Strict protocols governed Ultra use. Intelligence could only be acted upon if a plausible alternative explanation existed. If Ultra revealed a U-boat position, British forces couldn't attack unless an aircraft could be sent to discover the submarine first, providing cover for the intelligence. Convoys couldn't be rerouted too precisely. They had to appear to be taking reasonable evasion rather than possessing perfect knowledge. Sometimes this meant accepting losses to preserve the secret. Coventry was bombed in November 1940, and Churchill knew it was coming from Enigma decrypts. The decision, debated and agonizing, was made not to evacuate the city or mass fighters there, because it would reveal British foreknowledge. The raid killed 568 people. The secret was compartmentalized so strictly that most people who used ultra-intelligence didn't know where it came from. Field commanders received intelligence briefings attributed to various sources: reconnaissance, prisoner interrogations, captured documents, anything except the truth. Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery, commanding the 8th Army in North Africa, received detailed intelligence about Rommel's Afrika Korps that shaped his victory at El Alamein. Montgomery knew German unit positions, fuel states, and Rommel's intended maneuvers. He never knew this came from Enigma. The intelligence advantage in North Africa was overwhelming. British commanders read Rommel's supply convoy schedules and routes. RAF and Royal Navy forces sank German supply ships with suspicious accuracy. The Afrika Korps was slowly strangled not by superior British forces, but by supply interdiction based on perfect intelligence. Rommel noticed, in October 1942, he wrote, "The enemy knows all our intentions and deploys forces accordingly. Either there is a spy in my headquarters, or they are reading our communications. I believe the former. The latter is impossible." German counterintelligence investigated Rommel's staff exhaustively. They found nothing because there was no spy. They were reading his mail. The Normandy invasion planning showed Ultra at its most valuable. German defensive preparations, unit locations, commander personalities, and Hitler's strategic assumptions were all known to Allied planners through Enigma intercepts. The elaborate deception operation, Operation Fortitude, which convinced Germany the invasion would come at Pas de Calais, was monitored through Enigma. Allied planners could read German intelligence assessments and see that the deception was working. When Hitler decided to hold panzer divisions in reserve near Paris instead of sending them to Normandy, Enigma revealed this decision to Eisenhower before the German tank commanders were informed. On D-Day itself, ultra-intelligence told Allied commanders that German responses were confused and delayed. They knew the 21st Panzer Division's counterattack timing before it stepped off. They knew reinforcement schedules and routes. The German 15th Army, stationed at Pas de Calais, with 19 divisions, remained there for weeks after D-Day because Hitler believed the Normandy landing was a feint. Allied commanders knew this from Enigma intercepts and adjusted their plans accordingly. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commanding German forces in the West, became increasingly paranoid about intelligence leaks. "The enemy anticipates every move," he reported to Berlin. "We cannot achieve surprise. They know our dispositions as well as we do. There must be systematic betrayal at the highest levels." He was right that there was systematic betrayal, but wrong about the source. There were no traitors, just mathematics and brilliant codebreakers. The psychological impact on German commanders was severe. Generals began to distrust their own staffs. Rommel rotated officers, implemented elaborate security protocols, and restricted information flow. None of it helped because the leak wasn't human. It was in the supposedly unbreakable encryption system they trusted completely. The Battle of the Atlantic showed Ultra's impact most clearly. In the first 4 months of 1943, before Ultra coverage of Atlantic U-boat operations became comprehensive, German submarines sank 97 Allied merchant ships, totaling 560,000 tons. In the last 4 months of 1943, with full Ultra intelligence guiding convoy routing and anti-submarine operations, U-boat sinkings dropped to 67 ships, totaling 365,000 tons, despite Germany having more operational submarines than ever. By May 1943, Donitz was losing a submarine every day on average. The casualty rate became unsustainable. On May 24, 1943, he withdrew U-boats from the North Atlantic entirely, the first time Germany had conceded a strategic area since the war began. The enemy has achieved mastery through technical superiority, Donitz wrote. Our boats are detected by methods we cannot identify. Losses are insupportable. Continuation of operations in current form is no longer viable. He never considered that technical superiority meant reading his orders. The human cost of maintaining ultra secrecy was significant. Merchant sailors died in convoy attacks that might have been prevented if convoys had been routed more aggressively. Soldiers walked into ambushes that could have been avoided if intelligence had been shared more widely. Cities were bombed when evacuation would have saved lives. These decisions remain controversial. Could more have been done to use the intelligence without compromising it? Historians still debate this, but the strategic calculus was clear. Ultra was so valuable that protecting the source justified accepting tactical losses. General Dwight Eisenhower stated after the war, "Ultra was decisive. It saved thousands of British and American lives and shortened the war by at least a year, possibly 2 years. The intelligence advantage it provided was incalculable." The mathematical achievement behind Ultra was equally remarkable. Turing's bomb was essentially the world's first computer, a programmable machine that could process information according to logical rules. The techniques developed at Bletchley Park laid foundations for modern computer science. By 1944, Bletchley was using Colossus, an electronic computer designed by Tommy Flowers that could process 5,000 characters per second. This machine was attacking an even more sophisticated German cipher called Lorenz, used for Hitler's most secret strategic communications. Colossus represented the birth of electronic computing, created to break codes. The irony was profound. Germany prided itself on technical and scientific superiority. They had created what they believed was a perfect encryption system. British mathematicians, working in a Victorian mansion with limited resources, had defeated German engineering through pure intellectual brilliance. The Germans came close to discovering the breach several times. In 1942, a statistical analysis of Allied convoy routing showed patterns that couldn't be explained by chance. A junior analyst suggested the British might be reading U-boat transmissions. His superiors dismissed this as impossible and filed the report without action. In 1943, after the Luftwaffe lost 3 transport aircraft over the Mediterranean, all ambushed by fighters at exactly the right times and places, German intelligence again questioned whether codes were compromised. An investigation concluded that security was intact and blamed the losses on bad luck and enemy radar. In 1944, after D-Day, Hitler himself questioned whether Enigma was secure. His chief of Wehrmacht signals ordered a comprehensive review. The conclusion: Enigma remains unbreakable. The enemy may have developed superior direction-finding capabilities, but they cannot read our encrypted traffic. The Führer can have complete confidence in our communications security. Hitler accepted this assessment. The possibility that his most secret strategic directives were being read by Churchill and Eisenhower before his own generals saw them never seriously entered German strategic planning. The secret held through the war's end. When Germany surrendered in May 1945, they still believed Enigma was secure. Captured German officers were astounded during post-war interrogations when told that the Allies had been reading their communications. Admiral Dönitz, interrogated by British naval intelligence in 1945, initially refused to believe it. "Impossible," he stated. "Our cryptographers confirmed Enigma's security repeatedly. We investigated every alternative explanation for operational failures. If you had been reading our messages, you would have won the war 2 years earlier." The interrogator's response was enlightening. "We were reading your messages. We won the war 2 years earlier." General Feldmarschall Wilhelm Keitel, chief of the Armed Forces High Command, broke down when shown Enigma decrypts of orders he had signed. "We trusted mathematics," he said. "How did you defeat mathematics?" The answer was that mathematics hadn't been defeated. It had been used more brilliantly by the other side. Turing and the Bletchley Park team hadn't broken mathematics. They had exploited human errors in how mathematics was applied. The ultra-secret remained classified until 1974, nearly 30 years after the war ended. This extended secrecy reflected the enduring value of cryptographic techniques developed at Bletchley. The methods that broke Enigma informed British and American signals intelligence throughout the Cold War. When the secret was finally revealed, it required wholesale revision of World War II history. Battles that had been attributed to tactical brilliance or luck could now be understood as intelligence-driven victories. Montgomery, Eisenhower, and other commanders had fought with extraordinary advantages that historians hadn't known about. The German perspective also shifted. Commanders who had been blamed for failures could now explain that they had been fighting an enemy who read every order before it was executed. Rommel's defeats made more sense when understanding that British forces knew his every plan. Dönitz's U-boat failures were comprehensible when realizing that convoys were being routed around wolfpacks using exact position data. Alan Turing, the mathematical genius at the heart of Ultra, died in 1954 from cyanide poisoning, ruled a suicide after his prosecution for homosexuality, which was then illegal in Britain. He died without public recognition of his achievement, which remained classified for 20 more years. His contributions to ending the war, saving countless lives, and founding computer science went unacknowledged during his lifetime. The parallel to the Sherman and sonar stories is clear. German technological confidence, whether in tank design, submarine warfare, or cryptography, was repeatedly defeated by Allied systematic advantages. The Germans built better individual systems. the Allies built better overall systems that made individual superiority irrelevant. Enigma was mathematically elegant and mechanically sophisticated. Bletchley Park was organizationally brilliant and intellectually superior. Quality of design lost to quality of analysis. The final statistics tell the story. Bletchley Park processed approximately 3,000 Enigma messages per day at peak operations. Over 1 million messages total during the war. This intelligence informed every major Allied operation from 1941 onward. It changed strategic decisions, saved convoys, prevented ambushes, and exposed German weaknesses. The estimated impact, shortening the war by 18 to 24 months, saving millions of lives, and enabling Allied victory with far fewer casualties than would otherwise have been required. And through it all, the Germans never knew. They sent messages confident in mathematical security. British codebreakers read them with mathematical certainty. German commanders blamed spies, luck, and Allied technical superiority, never suspecting that their unbreakable encryption had been broken through sheer intellectual brilliance. The Enigma machine sits now in museums worldwide, a testament to sophisticated engineering. But next to them should be displayed the bomb, representing something more powerful. Human genius, defeating mechanical perfection through logic, persistence, and pure thought. Kapitänleutnant Reinhard Suhren, who we met searching for Convoy HX-175 in 1942, survived the war. In a 1983 interview, he reflected on Ultra's revelation. "We were the best submarine force in the world. We had the best torpedoes, the best training, the best commanders. We lost because we were fighting blind against an enemy who could see perfectly. Every message we sent, every position we reported, every attack we planned, they read it all. We never had a chance. We just didn't know it." That was the genius of Ultra, not just breaking the code, but keeping the secret so completely that Germany trusted their communications until the last day of the war. They died following orders that the enemy had already read and countered, never understanding why their tactics failed and their plans were anticipated. The greatest intelligence operation in history worked because one side possessed absolute confidence in mathematics, while the other side possessed mathematicians who were absolutely brilliant. If you found this story of secret intelligence and code breaking fascinating, you need to see the other hidden stories of how technology and innovation, not just battlefield tactics, won World War II. We've got dozens of incredible stories, the weapons, systems, and breakthroughs that Germany and Japan never knew about until it was too late. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell so you never miss these true stories. We're releasing new content every day, revealing the real secrets of how Allied intelligence, technology, and systematic thinking defeated Axis powers who believed in individual superiority. Drop a comment below telling us what shocked you most. Was it that Germany never suspected for 3 entire years? That Churchill and Eisenhower read Hitler's orders before German generals? That a Victorian mansion full of mathematicians changed the course of history? Subscribe to War Rewind, where we uncover the stories of how intelligence and innovation, not just courage and firepower, won the greatest war in history. See you in the next video.